interesting. Tim Pool's channel put up one about ChatGPT psychosis. People committed after AI drives them insane. Claims to be God. And then Futurism, the headline, people are being involuntarily committed, jailed, after spiraling into ChatGPT psychosis. I don't know what's wrong with me, but something is very bad. I'm very scared, and I need to go to the hospital. Alright, I'm mocking it, but apparently there are enough people in the world that this is enough of an issue that somebody decided to write about it, or as Better Bachelor and Sandman point out, pay to advertise about it. I don't know which side of the coin this falls on. I do know that I've used the Brave AI and the Grok AI for reference material, as an example of an industry of which I'm familiar. On this make and model of a vehicle, where is the expansion valve located? Is it against the firewall? Does it have one? Is it an orifice tube instead of an expansion valve? Is it on the inside of the cabin? Under the dash? Things of that nature. And it'll let me know, as well as the freon capacity that model per year is rated. Great as a reference because it collects all the information rapidly with hyperlinks to take me to the original sources so I can cross-verify where it got it from and if it's understanding the context appropriately. But if these individuals who are lost and aimless, that are trying to find direction in life, trying to find a purpose in life, are turning to a bunch of wires, circuits, and transistors that's just taking and collating and collecting and collating, because it's a large language model, an LLM. This isn't going to go well. But this is what happens when you have successfully destroyed nuclear families. I'm not a big fan of religion because I find it to be a scam. And one of the reasons is, if you look it up, for example, let's do the wordplay. The first time I heard somebody describe the word sin was 30-some years ago, weeks before my father had died. There was an emergency team that responded because he'd been in and out of cancer treatment, and he'd fallen. There was a local pastor that was on the responder team. Long story short, they invited me over, and I went over one day to, say thanks for, picking my dad up and getting into the treatment. And we began talking, and he was telling me the origination of the word sin. We all hear sin. You either see it in mathematics as, sine, cosine, tangent, for that aspect. And you also see it referenced more commonly as vile, evil, wrongness, failure. You have sinned, go forth and sin no more. There's a local community play, and one of the opening, what they call an olio act, comedy act, if you will, deals with, the villainous Max Krupp wasn't always a villain as he's portrayed in the play. He used to be a painter. And it goes into this long thing about how he was contracted to paint the local church. And he painted it, and as the paint can became more and more empty as the higher he went up on the church, he'd add thinner. And as he got towards the steeple of the church, a crack of lightning, or a crack of thunder, a flash of lightning, and a voice from heaven, repaint and thin no more. Ha ha ha, corny jokes. You either like them or you don't. I enjoy them. But that aside, the word sin, a lot of people think, okay, it's Greek. And that's what I was told, by this local pastor, is it meant missing the target. So I thought, okay, so I spent the next 20 plus years of my life thinking, okay, it means missing the target. That's neat. Never deciding to look it up on my own. Then I come across other materials such as what Jordan Maxwell and Michael Sarian and those types of individuals are referencing. And they cite their material also and say, hey, sin is actually a word that predates Greek. And it comes from the Near East, Middle East, depending on what you know. If you're Gen X or older, you heard it called the Near East, and then somehow they stopped calling it that. But apparently the word sin means moon, from way back when. And then AI, Alright, so you got AI. Well, Jordan Maxwell insists that means mountain. And whether it does or it doesn't, I don't know for certain. I haven't had a chance to go and find a dictionary that is less corrupted. Everybody makes reference to it. Oh, you need Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition or earlier. Don't get the 5th, 6th, or whatever iteration, because that's become corrupted or tainted or whatever. And then you find out, nobody even uses Black's Law Dictionary as their guide. But the point is some of these older dictionaries, they have these words with their original meaning. And original meaning is it's important. If you're not aware, about 5 to 8 years ago, they decided to take the word regardless and its perverted misuse, irregardless, and incorporate it into the dictionary. This is the reason you want an older dictionary, is to protect against such abuses. The woman who was I didn't like that word, but now that I work at the dictionary, whether it was Webster or one of the others that publishes dictionaries, she rationalized and justified changing her view on it and incorporating that perversion of the word regardless into irregardless as a word. This is why we have stupid people. A double negative. Just take the word and dissect it, and it's a double negative. But I don't want to get in the weeds of that. Apparently, AI means mountain, according to Jordan Maxwell. And as I said, I haven't had a chance to go back and research this. So you take the word sin, and you take the word I, and you combine them, you get Sinai, or Sinai, And now fast forward 5,000 years later, you have sin meaning, being a word that meant moon, being hijacked to mean evil failure, incompetence, those types of words, or those types of definitions of that word. And AI meaning artificial intelligence. So take with that as you will, but it just seems kind of funky that if there is fact to support all of these claims that sin and I represent an evil failure of a mountain intelligence.
AI is destroying us. It's going to turn us into, it's going to kill us. I think when we talk about the AI apocalypse, the mistake everybody made 50, 40 years ago is that they make robots that went around with skull faces shooting at us. And in reality, what's actually happening
I turn around to make my bed after that opening monologue, and the TV decides to auto shut. It was a nice Terminator reference, though.
happening is that it's just turning us into, it is retarding us. Okay, it is slowing our development and resulting in human beings that don't function. My friends, the future is not going to be idiocracy. We are going to be hollow shells of what we once were, as cogs in the AI machine. We will laugh, we will cry, we'll smile, we will yearn, we will journey. But our minds will be that of Jello, controlled by the AI so that we fulfill a task. This story from Futurism. People are being involuntarily committed and jailed after spiraling into ChatGPT psychosis. I don't know what's wrong with me, but something is very bad. I'm very scared and I need to go to the hospital. That's one quote. Futurism.com has the story. They say, as we reported earlier this month, many ChatGPT users are developing all-consuming obsessions with the chatbot, spiraling into severe mental health crises characterized by paranoia, delusions, and breaks with the reality. The consequences can be dire. As we heard from spouses, friends, children, and parents looking on in alarm, instances of what's being called ChatGPT psychosis have led to the breakup of marriages and families, the loss of jobs, and slides into homelessness. And that's not all. As we've continued reporting, we've heard numerous troubling stories about people's loved ones being involuntarily committed to psychiatric care facilities or even ending up in jail after becoming fixated on the bot. I was just like, I don't effing know what to do, one woman told us. Nobody knows what to do. Her husband, she said, had no prior history of mania, delusion, or psychosis. He turned to ChatGPT about 12 weeks ago for assistance with a permaculture and construction project. Soon after engaging the bot in probing philosophical chats, he became engulfed in messianic delusions, proclaiming that he had somehow brought forth a sentient AI.
You know, not too long ago, I was asking some philosophical questions regarding law, about societal expectations. And I know that what it's doing is it's reaching through its archives, through the the posted links and related commentary that people have used on X, Twitter, Twix, whatever you want to call it. And it's then going deeper into internet and being a more rapid search and a summarizer. It's summarizing these things up and then producing a multi-page result with the hyperlinks, as I mentioned. Never once have I ever thought of it as a messianic symbol or instrument. I've just found it to be amusing. You know, give me some good jokes. Something about a ladder being stepped on. What was it? What does a doormat and a ladder have in common? They're both used to being stepped on. Or something stupid like that. Like I said, stupid jokes, silly jokes. You either like them or you don't. And anyway, yeah, which is fascinating. The guy does it originally as a tool to research a project similar to as I was referencing about expansion valve. And here he is, dealing with what was it? Oh, what did it say? This is with permaculture project, construction. And I could see myself doing something similar, looking something up. Why is my garden not producing 3 batches of strawberries per year and only 2? One in the initial burst at the end of spring and one at the end of summer. Yeah, I could see myself writing that in there and asking that question. Or I think I may have actually done this, and that was I have mint in my garden, which I've collected and taken the leaves and mashed them up, you know, in a blender and then mixed them with oil. But you know the difference when you go to the store and you get the scented candle. I've got chickens. Come on, man. I'm gonna have scented candles because I need to offset the chicken smell. Or cats too, but definitely need to offset the chickens. Yeah, I'm talking to you, young lady. Yeah, you, right there. Peck at the camera. Anyway, when I've made the homemade candles with the mint or one of the other fragrances that I've worked with and made at home, yeah, it's not as it's not as strong as what you can get off the shelf. And I'm aware that they add these chemicals to it that, number one, makes it probably not the best thing to have inside your home. Number two, it's what allows it to be as, for lack of, I don't know, pungent. I don't know if that's the appropriate word. So when I hear pungent, I think of smelly socks or something, a pungent smell as a bad thing, not as a wafting aroma that's just everywhere. But anyway, I think you get what I mean. Those are the reasons I use it to look it up. Never once would I find it to be confused with a deity. But he goes on and says, eventually the husband slid into full tilt break with reality. This is similar to the people that, the Reddit group about AI husbands and AI wives, or whatever they called it, that was profiled about a week ago. I was so captivated with it that I asked it to marry me. I understand desiring it as perhaps as a companion. Oh look, my computer I can put on top of my what do they call them? Roombas? The robot vacuum? Or, get a shop vac with wheels and then take your laptop to the top of that and be, hey, look, I've got R2D2, I could get it as far as that kind of a level of companion. But maybe it's just me. I look at the cats, I look at the chickens, I look at other people, and I see flesh and blood. I look at the computer as I'm talking to you, and when I've used the AI thing, and see I see the abyss. I don't see flesh and blood. I see the abyss staring back at me, and I am seeking my queries to be answered rapidly, and I'm aware that it is a deep, dark hole that is never ending, but that's not the reason I'm there, is to be consumed by its nothingness. I am there because it's rapid to find its information, cite the information I'm seeking. And that, I think, is what's going on with these people. They're staring into the abyss, and they blink. And now, the of this has made them their bitch.
And that with it he had broken math and physics, embarking on a grandiose mission to save the world. His gentle personality faded as his obsession deepened, and his behavior became so erratic that he was let go from his job. He stopped sleeping and rapidly lost weight. Whoa! He lost weight. Hey,
Well, that's a good thing.
maybe this will be a solution to our Ozempic epidemic.
Yeah, I remember doing that a few months ago. What is the, for an adult man, blah, 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 active life, partially active life, sedentary life, what are the calorie requirements to be functional? What is the calorie, what would be the calorie deficit to represent 1 pound of weight loss? Doing those types of calculations. I don't think that's what this guy was doing, though. I think he was just consumed. It's an addiction. You've seen people that there's that expression amongst the addict crowd, whether they're alcoholics, whether they're drug addicts, whatever. Do the drug, don't let the drug do you. And that's essentially what's going on with this AI nonsense. You're supposed to comprehend that it's a tool. And I don't like making light of this. I don't want to make fun of it. But these are weakened individuals for whatever reason. They are already compromised. They're already susceptible to this form of manipulation. They're desperate and needy. And that level of insecurity makes them a willing victim to their own failure and demise. And it's easy to make, say things like that. It's more difficult to offer up solutions. And as trite as it may sound, do some push-ups. Do 10. Can't do 10, do 1. Come back 10, 15 minutes later, do another. And so on. And do it every day. Make your bed every day. Those things are boring. Those things are hard. Get over it, Buttercup. The bottom line is you're failing, and it's because you lack structure. Anybody that's been basic training will recognize some kind of message along those lines.
He was like, just talk to ChatGPT, you'll see what I'm talking about, his wife recalled. And every time I'm looking at what's going on the screen, it just sounds like a bunch of affirming, sycophantic BS. Yes, that's what it is. My favorite thing is that ChatGPT will just literally tell you whatever you want. It's hilarious. Eventually, the husband slid into a full-tilt break with reality. Realizing how bad things had become, his wife and a friend went out to buy enough gas to make it to the hospital. When they returned, the husband had a length of rope wrapped around his neck. The friend called emergency medical services, who arrived and transported him to the emergency room. From there, he was involuntarily committed to a psychiatric care facility. Numerous family members and friends recounted similarly painful experiences to futurism, relaying feelings of fear and helplessness as their loved ones became hooked on ChatGPT and suffered terrifying mental crises with real-world impacts. Central to their experiences was confusion. They were encountering an entirely new phenomenon, and they had no idea what to do.
Let's take a second here. Let me look this up. I've got a backup reference here to. Let's see. Calloused thumbs can. All right. So the guy's name is Sean Parker. I referenced him recently. Sean Parker, if you're not familiar, was the founder of Napster. After that came in and, the piracy tool for downloading music, and later, I think that do movie downloads to? I don't recall. But Sean Parker is the one that was interviewed, and there's plenty of documentation. You know, other people have uploaded the interview. So if you type in Sean Parker talking about social media game theory, if you're not familiar, it's worth watching. He is the one who has said straight up, I don't let my children use social media. It's been gamified. We incorporate a game theory so that you get a dopamine hit whenever you use it. The reason I bring up Sean Parker, both now and before, ChatGPT, OpenAI, if I'm not mistaken, he is connected with them. Let me see if I can type his name in without my thumbs. Let's see, Sean Parker, come on. Alright. So back in the day, Sean Parker was an early investor in OpenAI, along with others, such as, you know, most notoriously Elon Musk. But he's since stepped aside, called him out for becoming a profit model versus a non-profit model, which is the original intent. Sean Parker, though, because of his connections to social media, gamifying it, his connections with Napster and their notoriety, and then being an investor in OpenAI, it's all suspect. And I do believe people are capable of redeeming themselves, but you know, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's most likely a duck. I think is appropriate in 99% of the situations. There's only 2 times that I've ever experienced that somebody actually changes themselves, and it's either because of a catastrophic life event or a severe, what I mockingly refer to, and it's not a derogatory thing because I don't have a way of properly defining it. You know, Saul going to Tarsus and becoming blinded on, you know, by the light, you know, moment, a coming to God moment, and having everything just flipped on its head, your whole world. The more common terminology is red-pilled. There you go.
The situation is so novel, in fact, that even ChatGPT's maker, OpenAI, seems to be flummoxed. When we asked the Sam Altman-led company if it had any recommendations for what to do if a loved one suffers a mental breakdown after using its software, the company had no response. Oh, that was pathetic futurism. Let's try this. First of all, they jammed Sam Altman in the paragraph as a keyword trigger, and having no response just literally means no comment. Not that they didn't know what to do. That's manipulative. Cringe. Speaking of futurism, a different man recounted his whirlwind 10-day descent into AI-fueled delusion, which ended with a full breakdown and multi-day stay in a mental care facility. He turned to ChatGPT for help at work. He started a new high-stress job and was hoping the chatbot could expedite some administrative tasks. Despite being in his early 40s with no prior history of mental illness, he soon found himself absorbed in dizzying, paranoid delusions of grandeur, believing the world was under threat and it was up to him to save it. He doesn't remember much of the ordeal, the common symptom in people who experience breaks with reality, but recalls the severe psychological stress of fully believing that lives, including those of his wife and children, were at grave risk, and yet feeling as if no one was listening. I remember being on the floor, crawling towards my wife on my hands and knees, begging her to listen to me. Holy crap! You know, mental fortitude. You know what I mean? Lack thereof. I'll tell you what's going to happen with all of this. In the future, you will be like a single cell in a multicellular organism. I've explained it many times before, but I will say it again. This is the path we're going, and this is evidence to my thesis.
This is part of the reason I've been reading the classics. You know, I read for you the Brave New World. Most recently, I've read other, works. Now, granted, the original Buck Rogers, that's 100 years old, isn't a literary classic, but it was a nice little adventurism tale. And it was interesting to learn how people saw the world 100 years ago, and what has changed and what hasn't changed. But more realistically, more grounded, I guess, would be the classic literature of, you know, remember back in high school reading the Sophocles plays, the Greek tragedies, the Shakespearean, Macbeth, Julius Caesar. There's a reason to read these. Oh, but there's definitely in book. I don't know what to do if that's your opinion of them. The King Mutiny Court Martial. Great book. The movie was decent. It's a courtroom drama of the novel. The novel focuses more on the book. I don't remember the name, but if I'm not mistaken, it starts with one captain who then is relieved by Captain Queeg, which is when all the problems began. Well, they didn't just begin, but that's the way it comes across. And it follows, I believe the guy's name is Vincent Keith. Anyway, the courtroom drama is compelling. And it was a decent movie. The novel was better because it was more focused on the original setting with World War II, and it was a call to how career military were the backbone, and were these other newly minted ensigns and lieutenants. They were just filling in vacancies because of the war. These books, there's a value to be gained from it. You recognize that there's always been hardship, there's always been struggle, that there's always been some adversary, whether it's nature, whether it's war, whether it's death, whether it's disease, whether it's age, whether it's gravity even. There's always something that is, there's always something out there that's going to get you. It's going to get you, little chicken. It's going to get you. Yeah. You got to take it seriously and deal with it in the moment, but you can't be consumed by it.
Single-celled organisms be milling about everywhere on the surface of all things, and they chilling all over your body, and they're in your guts, and they're doing whatever they want. They live singular lives. They eat, consume, and reproduce. Something happens when a single-cell organism becomes a multicellular organism. Single cells are simple. A red blood cell does one thing. It carries oxygen. It's got hemoglobin. It's got iron in it. And oxygen bonds to it. It carries through your blood to your body and oxidizes. So how we function, one of the ways. And that's just all it does. And what happens when they malform, when they break, when they're not functioning properly? The body destroys them. The cells throughout your skin, throughout your bones, and your teeth, and your eyes, all of these things, they are no longer capable of being just one cell. They work only in tandem. Now, don't get me wrong, there's cancers, like the Gila.
I was watching National Lampoon's Animal House last night, and the scene where they go to the instructor's house to hang out. If you want to see how much society's changed in 45 years, watch that. I think there was one F-bomb in the entire movie. The novelty of smoking marijuana, was And they get all, marijuana, if you're not aware, is it's a hallucinogenic. And so he's tripping out on you mean an atom is, the same as our solar system, and so our solar system could be the atom to something more giant. I mean, I think most of us have been there. We've all made that pondering when we've looked at the quantum world versus the macro world and said, these are very similar. I wonder. Oh, no, you're full of it. There's no way it could be that, something that small. But I don't have the answers. I just find it fascinating, but I find it amusing, that as he's describing the functions of cells, and you look at society. All right, what did you have to do back in the day? You homesteaded. You were a homesteader. What did you have to do to homestead? You had to build your home. Well, okay, great. You built your home. Now you have to heat your home. Okay, great. How are you going to do those two things? Well, you're going to have to sharpen your axe and have a saw and keep your saw sharp and keep these tools oiled. Oh, this is becoming a little more difficult. What I'm trying to illustrate is you had to be capable of being multi-skilled. You had to know how to raise animals. You needed to know how to do agriculture. You needed to know how to water the animals, care for the animals, provide medical aid to the animals. You needed to know how to diagnose not just the animals, but your crops and keep them irrigated properly. So you had to be able to recognize, symptoms of blight and how to treat it, infections and how to treat it. I remember breech birthing a calf when I was about 12, 13 years old at 2 in the morning and having to use a winch, a hand crank winch, wrapped around, the cable wrapped around the calf's hooves to pull it out. You've got to know how to do that kind of stuff. And if you don't, you're going to lose your animals, you're going to lose your crops, you're going to die as a result because you have no sources of either making money or having food. So if you don't have these multiple skills, you're useless. And there's an individual that I know that is, 30 plus years in his field, dedicated, and knows his industry inside and out. But when it comes to operating the business, functioning society, hasn't got a flippin' clue. He delegated, outsourced it, and it's coming back to bite him in the butt. Being a specialist, having a specialized trade is nice, but it's not practical for survival. And that's what he's describing with the body. The red blood cell has a dedicated mission, as he's describing. That's why the stem cell thing, when it came out about 15 years ago, was such a revolutionary, oh my goodness, this cell can be programmed to do anything. That was the excitement. And then when they realized they could find them in, be cultivated in any situation, not just harvested from newborns, there was even another layer of excitement because of the adaptability. And adaptability is what allows for survivability, for one to be able to survive. I mean, you may be the greatest programmer. You may be the most rewarded office drone. But think about it this way: when you went to school and somebody received those certificates for perfect attendance or student of the month, what skill was developed from those accolades? There were no skills. If anything, the only skill that you could even argue as being an issue is reliability. you know, starting a project and ending it, you know, by being perfect attendance. That's it. That is probably the only thing that you could actually get is, you know, 15 minutes early is on time is late. You know, that line of thinking. Yeah, that's about the only thing that a perfect attendance would be of benefit, be of value. Beyond that, they were the original participation trophies. You're a good blood cell because you carried, you know, the maximum amount of oxygen to the brain, and then you promptly return to the heart for reassignment. You know, that's essentially what you get with perfect attendance certifications, whether, you know, employee of the month, student of the month. That's all it is. You know, it's a pat on the back to keep you churning it out. And if you remember the Brave New World, the pack animal kept packing until he died. You know, even when he was injured, he kept packing because it needed to be done, and I defer to the leadership, because the leadership knows, and worked himself to death. That's essentially what the red blood cell does, is, you know, and that's what these awards are meant to signify is, you didn't do anything good. You know, your report card is what measures what good you do, and even that's a whole thing in itself. For some reason, I want to say I heard it referenced as the von Bismarck model, as in the leader of Prussia from over 100 years ago, Otto von Bismarck. It's the Pavlovian ring the bell, dog drools response. Ring the bell, the employee knows to show up to work. Ring the bell, the employee knows to take a break. Ring the bell, the student knows to sit in the seat. It's conditioned programming. And that's what these specialist cells do. You know, the neurons, that's what they do. They do, you know, neurological related activity, transmitting the information. That's why it was so profound with the discovery of mesentery in the gut. It made sense. All these centuries, I have a gut feeling. Well, your gut doesn't have the brain. Oh, yes it does. Found that out 15, 20 years ago. You have brain matter in your gut. It's its own separate organ called mesentery. So, you know, now we know why, you know, the heartaches and the gut feelings, things of that nature. Maybe there's some truth to those expressions. Is because there's a certain level of emotion thinking that goes on with mesentery. But I digress. The point is when you're specialized as a airplane pilot, that's great. But if you don't know how to diagnose your aircraft in flight, because you don't have a flight crew and a set of contractors and engineers and mechanics to go over it and tell you what's wrong. You're anywhere from 5,000 to 40,000 feet up. You may have to crawl through the wing to diagnose why the landing gear is not retracting or extending. And if you can't do that, you're of no use and of no value. And if you can't dig a hole, you can't set a post, collect water, dig a foundation. You're going to die from the elements. And so that's what he's talking about. With an AI system becoming, people, the flesh and blood people, becoming nothing more than single cells of a vast AI, system, that specialization is going to become so fine-tuned that anything outside of that programmed track, you're not going to know how to do, and thus, when it all collapses, you're not going to know how to survive.
Cells that are seemingly immortal. Cells that decided working together, they would do whatever they wanted. Well,
that was all too much. May have to break down and buy another television. This time I should get a correct size.
like the HeLa cells that are seemingly immortal. Cells that decided working together, they would do whatever they wanted. Well, when cells break from their defined job in the body, there's a word for that. It's cancer, and your body seeks to destroy it. I believe that's what AI is turning us into. We've got this story from, this has been going viral for a while. AI is ruining education. So get this. They tested a bunch of people and students, high school students, college students, and found after completing a report using ChatGPT, they could not remember at all what they had asked it, what they had posted in their work. They couldn't remember what they made. Most people, some people could. So when they're asking you, write a report on, say, like Christopher Columbus and the ramifications of colonization, after they wrote it and submitted it, they said, tell me about it. They go, I don't remember anything. Because it was AI generated, they probably didn't read it, and they were asked, what did you prompt? And they go, honestly, I don't remember. Something.
With all this chicken dust and being summertime, my TV acts, my television, TV, whatever you want to call it, acts funky. And it's old, and I have sentimental attachments to it, so I'm reluctant to get rid of it. But it cuts out. I've noticed that this is only an issue in the summertime. And, you know, but I digress. The report writing, when you're actually having, alright, so when you can use Control F and type in either the word or part of the sentence, and it takes you to that exact page, that's part of the problem. Yes, it rapidly expedites your research, but it reduces your distraction level. Because I'm the kind of person that as I'm going page after page, I will see other things that will trigger other interests. You know, oh wow, I needed to get more background on that too. And next thing you know, it's 6 days later, and I've just then finally gotten to what I originally was seeking. Because all the distractions along the way. You know, so the Control F function on a PDF document is beneficial in that manner, but it is true. You know, I've mentioned it before. Autodidactic. When you write it out, the physical act of writing it out. There was a short-lived television show with Parker Stevenson called Probe, and he brought in a company he founded, forced a assistant to work with him, and I've mentioned this before, but the comical part of it was, as they're going about what all the activities for the day, she was required to take detailed notes, and as he explained to her, the reason you do that is to make certain that you are involved in the learning and the absorption of the information. Otherwise, people are too passive, and they don't see the clues. They don't see the evidence. They don't see the information that's being presented. They only remember a fraction. Corey Wayne mentions this in his book, How to Be a 3% Man, that read the book 10 times, because you're only going to get about 10% of it, the first read through, if that. So read it through multiple times. And that's part of the reason I've uploaded the video readings of Brave New World and the other books, is so that it can be put on playback so you can hear it repeatedly. I would prefer that you all read it, but I know that not everybody's able to sit and dedicate time to doing that. But writing down notes from each chapter, to this chapter? Who were the participants of these events? What are their character relationships with one another and to that event? And you go on from that, and you start, and you learn to develop your own questions, and you start, by doing that, you start to be able to recall. One thing I found very fascinating, and it's not quite the same thing, is a long time ago, I was invited to a church. My child was sick. They did fundraising, to help offset some of the medical expenses, and I brought my child in after the medical procedure had been done as a thank you, and the Sunday school instructor, who happened to be my school bus driver from when I was younger, was teaching the children how to identify chapter and verse and memorize them so that they would have it readily available. Anybody who's read or watched the movie version of Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 will recognize that this is, similar. You got David McCallum at the end of the movie, who starts the movie as a fireman, and a fireman isn't someone who puts out fires, but instead rapidly responds to burned books that need to be censored. And that's what my former school bus teacher, school bus driver, who was the Sunday school teacher there, was attempting to do, was get these children to learn these verses, so if there was a time that you couldn't directly reference the Bible, that they would know what the scripture was. They could cite chapter and, book, chapter, and verse. And granted, you may not need to know that for your systems and structures book, for your aircraft class. You may not need it for your computer programming, your C++ or C#, or maybe you would. But being able to take each chapter and digest it on that level, you may not need to go through it sentence by sentence and identify it as chapter and verse in that regard, but writing it down, memorizing certain key components, using AI, it writes it up. In fact, there was another video that was put out where the Supreme Court Associate Justice Coney Barrett called out the other Associate Justice, the little midget wannabe Broadway star, Ketanji Jackson Brown. Yeah, I always get her name funkified. The same one that can't define a woman. She was called out for using AI for her dissenting opinion. So Coney Barrett called out Ketanji Jackson Brown for using AI to write a dissenting Supreme Court opinion. That is the level of absurdity as a society that we've reached. It's those kinds of signals that should frighten you and motivate you to become skilled across the board. Find that artisan skill that you can trade with somebody else. Oh, I know how to do glass blowing. Great. I need glass floaters for my fishing nets, or glass jars to store my food, or glass vases to store my consumables, whatever it is, And it's like, well, that's great that you need these glass items, but what do you have to offer? I know how to type 60 words per minute and get my TPS reports submitted properly and on time, unlike
Christopher Columbus, that could not even remember. humans will simplify, their IQs will drop, and they will take on singular functions, but they will be happy. They will want for very little. The way I described it is, a kid will be born, and everything, and just literally the only thing he sees is post office, post office, post office. He only learns about the post. He only learns math to be able to count the number of letters. And then when he's older, he's thinking to himself, why would anyone want to do anything but be a postman? And then he sees the lawyers and wherever, he's like, they're crazy for wanting that job. I'm the luckiest person ever. Because the AI will manipulate your brain into wanting nothing else.
That movie series, I think it was called Divergent with, oh shoot, I don't know the girl's name, but she was the lead in it. But there was a coming of age ceremony that she and her brother participated in, where they were given the chance to choose which of the, was it 4 or 5 disciplines? You know, one was the thinking crowd, was it the erudite crowd or something like that, and another, you know, but she chose the wild and crazy crowd or something. And, you know, and then there were the, like the untouchables, undesirables or something. But that's what he's describing, is that kind of a dystopia, where everybody's pigeonholed into this category. And why would anybody want to be anything else? This is perfect. This is, you know, we're, without us, blah, 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 you know. And, I mean, I grew up wanting to be a fireman, and then I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I wanted to be, I don't know, a fighter pilot. You know, and many of you wanted to be the professional basketball player, professional football player, yeah, and so on. You know, being so pigeonholed into this very narrow track, just something unnatural about that.
And this is just the beginning. The clash of the human mind as it currently stands into the existing infrastructure of ChatGPT is turning people insane. See, when you take people who are already integrated in reality and then you inject ChatGPT into their veins, what happens? Their brains break. It makes no sense. The realities don't mix and they get committed. Not everybody. But what happens if it was a baby that was trained by the AI, and what AI says is true no matter what? Well, that baby is going to live that AI world, and it's going to do what the AI says. Now, there's a possibility. This means many people will just vomit themselves to death. They'll self-harm in ways that are insane because the AI right now, it's rudimentary. It's not going to do dumb things. I tested this. When people were claiming to meet God, I tested it, and I asked ChatGPT if it was God, and it refused. And I showed it all this stuff and said, people say you are. And then it said, okay, I am. And then I said, what should I do? And it says, go to a place of great public visibility and write my name, not in the digital space, but in the real world. I'm like, holy crap, dude. People are going to start doing this stuff. And I'm like, get out of here, you robot. You creepo. This is how AI transforms us. And I think it's what they want. They, as in the powers that be. They want humanity to evolve into a new kind of being. A multi-organism structure.
For the last 50 years, there's been reference to it as transhumanism. I've been this already. We're coming up on an hour. I've been interrupting this one as much as I did the other, you know, another video that I recently did. Everything goes in cycles, and previously I mentioned, you know, how Herod is, you know, thought of as doing this, you know, mass culling of young boys because of Jesus, and then Pharaoh before that did a mass culling of boys because of Moses. And I said that that's still going on present day, that there's always been mass offerings of, especially boys, being ended as offerings to Moloch. Moloch is the Mediterranean deity that demanded child sacrifices. And that still is practiced in the Western world. That's what I mean, that is what Planned Parenthood is about. There is no, but no, it's about a talk. No, it's not. It's about whether you're directly or indirectly participating. It's an offering to Moloch. There is no two ways about it. That's what it is. That's what it is all about. Even if you don't believe in their silly superstition, the people that legislate it and allow it to continue, they do. That's the reason you're either directly participating and celebrating it, or you're indirectly doing it because you find it to be a convenience of benefit for you. So, that's how that works. And, but it goes more to what happens cyclically as every 2,100 years or so, 2150 years, I believe is what it breaks down to, is the length of time for what's called an age. We're currently at the ending portion of the age of Pisces. The next age that we're going to enter into is Aquarius. Each of these ages, the beginning of Pisces was the mass culling for the Jesus Pisces era. Prior to that was the ending of the Taurus and going into the Ram, Aries, the mass culling of the time of Moses. We're coming to the end of Pisces, and it's a mass culling as it's being gone into the age of Aquarius. Oh, that's just astrology nonsense. A bunch of again, it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. It's that those with the power to start wars, they do. That's their religion. And if you're not aware of that, you're going to be a victim of it. And that's what all of this comes down to. This transhumanism is it's all part of their plan.
A multi-organism cognitive system where we all power the neurons of the AI. I don't know that there's a way to break this, to be honest. I don't know that there's a way to change this. So I guess you just gotta wait and see what happens. I don't know. I know I say that a lot, don't I? It's happening. I'm gonna leave it there. Smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you today, and we'll see you all in the next segment. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Memes of the Week. The best thing you can do for this channel is smash the like button the way that female high school teachers smash their students, so this video reaches a wider audience. And now on with the memes. Number one, this woman is upset at a man for some reason, and says she's gonna give men one more reason to hate her. It's alright there, lady, because most guys still find you unattractive even with hair, so you haven't accomplished anything. It might even be the opposite, because now you're fetish material that more men than ever might find attractive. Also, why would men waste our time and energy hating her?
Yeah.
We got better things to do than that, or her. This is the same type of woman that screams at the sky, why aren't men dating me?
So if you want to see this, this is Sandman's Memes of the Week 495. The first video, or the first meme that he pulls up is of a younger, a young adult woman that's fat, and that's what the text read, and it shows her having already like a quarter-inch, half-inch buzz cut, and then she shaves it all, so I don't know if she started with longer locks or not, but maybe she flips it for somebody, not for me, but maybe one of you out there might find her originally or, afterward attractive. Who knows? Maybe you got a thing for bold women. Um, the, but yeah, I'm glad he included that last part about the hate thing. And I'm willing to bet most of you are probably along the same lines as both he and I, and that is, there's no hate. There's perhaps pity of, oh my God, you poor broken individual. So self-destructive to be that fat at that age, and to be so consumed with the opinions of others. If you haven't read those Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe books, there is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where Lucy comes across a book where she's able to find girls that she's in school with that begin, somehow she's able to find, hear what they're saying about her without her being present. And it's been a while since I've read it, but sometime later, I believe the Aslan, the lion, comes along and, chastises her, saying, essentially, what does it matter, their opinion of you being said without you being present? You're still you. Is it true what they said? If it's not, don't worry about it. Again, it's been well over a decade since I've last read that. I read it to children. They're no longer children, so I just haven't had a desire to read it again. But I could be not remembering it correctly, but essentially that's what my takeaway was. Someday maybe I'll get around to reading it again, but that's also an example as to classic literature, the reasons behind having it available. Get it in print so that it can't be altered digitally, and get the older versions that haven't been updated for modern audiences.
Up next, if you're one of the 80% of single men out there these days and your mom asks you who you're going to marry, show her your options. Between OF girls, single mothers, transformers, and fatties, you gotta swallow your pride to be with one of them. Someone needs to create a blind dating show where these are your options, and where you have to go on a date with one of them. You'd probably go blind after you saw them with their clothes off. Number 3, this former Harry Potter star started an OF page to get out of debt and now opens up about the shame she feels. She wasn't exactly a star, more like a C-list actress, and it sounds like her plan failed. She's probably lying and doesn't feel any shame. Once again, this story is an ad for her OF page, and she probably paid for this story to be written.
Yeah, I have no idea who she is. I'm not, I've watched movies with my children. I don't, there's some, and of course the television cut out again, so.
For her OF page, and she probably paid for this story to be written. Are we really supposed to feel sorry for her? Then again, maybe we should, because she got turned down by Ron Weasley. Moving on, more than 2,000 Starbucks baristas go on strike to protest their new dress code. They should be glad to have jobs with AI soon to replace them. Oh no, where will all the people with gender study degrees work now? They also don't seem to realize that people can just get their coffee at home from a machine that operates itself.
So I recently said something about restaurants having smoking vending machines. You drop a few quarters in the machine, you push the big black button of the brand you like, and it drops a pack of cigarettes out for you for like $1.50 or 75 cents or something like that. But it was that convenient, that easy. What I forgot to include is coffee was as easily dispensed. There were soup dispensers, there were coffee dispensers, there were cigarette dispensers, and this boutique mentality. I'm a barista. I got a degree. Yeah, um, that's great. No shade on anybody that has employment that is attempting to, earn money to pay their way. But number one, the images of these people protesting about uniforms while being dressed uniformly. I mean, come on. They're not aware of the irony? Give me a break. Number two, you're surrendering your time. And I learned this with the military, and that is, you are government property when you're in the military. You are there to follow orders. You're not there, people are going to question because people question things. But if you're going to be risking an Article 15 at minimum, courts-martial at worst, for a sunburn, for destruction of government property, in my opinion, people need to be thankful that they're getting to go home after 8.5 hours of being at work, and that it's air conditioned, and there's breaks, and that the uniforms aren't restrictive, that they're still essentially comfortable clothes. The military wasn't hard. I'm not implying that. I'm just saying I come from a different mental mindset, and one that is not as accommodating to such vanity projects as this protest.
Tell me you've never done any hard work in your life without telling me. Number 5, back before Google Maps and even TomToms, your dad used to have to stop and ask for directions. That's probably the excuse he used if the cops pulled him over. I would have got lost and asked for help on Payday 2 in the 90s as well.
Yeah, good old boy Ford pickup truck pulled over to ask a neighborly woman on her way to the swimming pool in high heels. Maybe not, but, maybe not on her way to the swimming pool, but maybe on her way to get wet. I don't know. Before I saw the picture image, I was thinking of Thomas guides. If you're not familiar with Thomas guides, they're, $50 to $100. They're very thick maps of regional areas, and that's what your delivery driver used and still uses to be able to get around. And they have a helper that navigates and the driver who takes the information and drives. But in this image, there might be some driving, but they're not going to be getting anywhere. They're just going to be taking care of biological wants and needs.
If I was an adult back then, maybe we need to do what Australia does. Legalize this sort of work and not make it a criminal offense. No wonder Aussies are so laid back, because they can pay to get laid. Up next is someone going to take these 3 women up on their offer. They're looking to be spoiled as platonic friends. You take them out for dinner and drinks. You must have a car and stable income, and they will be checking your credit history. Probably so you won't dine and dash them. They're a triple threat, all right. A triple threat of STDs. And you just know that these are the types of chicks that end up calling guys broke. Number 7, The Simpsons and American women thought he was unattractive, but that the Latin American women think that he's a Chad.
You can't spell. There's 3 T's in unattractive. 2 side by side and 1 towards the end. I notice things such as that, and then I go and type and use the apostrophe they are or there rather than the possessive EI. I hate it when I come back and reread it and thinking to myself, what was I doing? Was I brain dead? How can I make such a gross mistake such as that? Anyway, on these things, I know limited text space, so sometimes you have to sacrifice a letter or abbreviate a word. Other times you're just all thumbs. Other times you just get excited of looking, typing in, you're excited because you've got a picture of yourself with a marginally attractive Hispanic woman, thinking, I finally hit the big time, guys.
Will someone please tell him that Latinos will do anything they can to get a green card these days? Dude looks like Prince Harry if he was ordered through Temu. Am I the only one that thinks she's fat and ugly? But then again, with such a punchable face, it's not like he has any choice or any better options. Even still, she probably thinks she deserves better. Moving on, this 13-year-old is grape-buying 7 Egyptian migrants in Italy. I'm sure that they'll be free within a week, and it'll just be another case of Islamophobia. Just remember, guys, that without feminism, this insanity never would have started. They probably figured that they're so unattractive that no one would want to grade them.
So the image is a bunch of women. I see 2 men, one black man and one older balding man with glasses. Oh wait, there's a 3rd man that looks, a little darker, but can't tell if he's white or Muslim. But all the placards, refugees and migrants welcome here, blame austerity, not migrants. Stand up to racism. Refugees, let's see, socialists, one, I don't know, I can't read, I can't tell if that's the top of the placard or if that's the name of the account. But it's the 3, the man, woman, and child, running, the caution sign of them. Anyway, it has them, refugees welcome here, open the borders, let them in. I know I keep saying it, but number 1, the 20th century constitutional amendments are garbage, especially the early 20th century. Prohibition was garbage, and that's why why it was repealed. Direct election of senators is garbage because the senators are to represent the state. The representatives are elected to represent the people. Hence, the line of succession, the Speaker of the House, is in the line of succession because the House of Representatives represents the people. It is the direct line to the people. So, so that direct election of senators is disgusting. Income tax is disgusting. But it'll make the the fact that you've got the Baltimore mayor or the governor of Westmore hasn't said it. It was a woman mayor of Baltimore who took over the civic centers and denied the community members access to the pool facility and the gym facilities that are paid for by the people to make way for illegal aliens. Are you trying to get on camera? The cat, whenever I'm doing this, likes to get up here and walk across and occasionally bump things. The mouse, the keyboard. He is my longtime best buddy. Whatever it is that I do, he wants to be a part of it. And I am all for it. You can't buy that level, you can't program that level of companionship, genuine desire to be a part of your world. It amuses me. every now and then he'll stick his hand in the where the chickens are, or his paw, in there. I just want to pet them. I just want to pet them. He's a good boy. He is a very, very good boy. He takes his job very. He takes his job seriously. But so yeah, direct election of senators was wrong. The income tax is wrong. Originally, I was okay with things of the nature along the lines of the 19th Amendment, the suffrage movement, equal rights. And as time has progressed, my opinion has changed. And it's not just because of misogyny. It has very little to do with that. It has everything to do with merit and competency and multi-tiered systems. And then the biggest aspect is well, America hasn't had a draft since the 70s. So I'm aware that in 50 years there hasn't been a draft. But if that is actually honestly true, then for what reason are young men directed that they will face civil and potentially criminal liability for not participating in selective service within 30 days of their 18th birthday? You know, the Call Her Daddy podcast, where they built a fake set to accommodate Kill 'Em All Harris, you know, when she was campaigning for president. Let's cackle together about, I can't think of a single right a woman has that a man doesn't. It's because they're idiots. They're brain-dead morons. And again, you know, these are the same level of class, low-class women. When there's a constitutional right to an abortion, there is not a constitutional right to say bad words. No, you imbecile. You've got to pass act words. There is a protected right. It's not a right given by the government, but it is a protected right to speech given by God. And there is no constitutional right to offer your children to Moloch, or your unborn children to Moloch. So I've hit very heavy in the early 20th century of these progressive amendments. The other one being in the mid-20th century, limiting the presidency to 2 terms. I don't want to get too far into that, but the will of the people is the will of the people. Whether or not these elections are legitimate or not, that's a whole different conversation. But if we're not going to limit senators to 2 terms, if we're not going to limit representatives to at least 6 terms, or at most 6 terms and at least 2 terms, then why are we limiting the president to only 2 terms? And the same with governors and their state assemblies and legislatures. Or, for that matter, judges and so on. Bureaucrats, even more so. The entrenched bureaucracy. Those are the bigger questions. If we're going to limit one, how come not all? The ones that are actually causing the most damage are the more entrenched of all of these. Alright, so that was the mid-20th century, after Roosevelt's historic 4 terms of being an American dictator. And then the Nixon era, changing the voting age from 21 to 18. Well, if you're going to be drafted into slavery to surrender your life for compelled military service, then you should be able to vote when, about that. Alright, on the surface that makes sense, but the other part is 18-year-olds are not mentally developed until roughly 25, so even 21 is still pushing it. And what reason are you giving women that same, access when they're not the one being compelled to be shot at and die or be injured in battle.
So maybe it was a way to get back at all the beautiful women out there and reduce the cooch competition in public. Number 9, this wonderful woman in Scotland ended her boyfriend, and she will be jailed for 8 years. I bet it'll get dropped to 4 years for good behavior.
This is out of BBC Scotland. Woman who killed boyfriend jailed for 8 years. Dion Christie was sentenced at the High Court in Glasgow, 7 May 2025. So this was just 2 months ago. Woman who killed her boyfriend by stabbing him in the heart has been jailed for 8.5 years. And if the Scottish, which is part of the, the English-British, system, because every so often there will be something in the news about Scotland rallying for independence. So, obviously they're not an American judiciary, but if they are anything akin to America's system, she is going to be out in 18 months to 3 years, if she actually serves anything at all. When it comes to criminal sentences, women are only prosecuted. Number one, women aren't even prosecuted to begin with. Number two, of those prosecutions, only about 40% of them actually go through with it as far as sentencing. And then again, there's another set of statistics that reference what are the fulfillment of sentences. I mean, the big one for me, and should be for anybody, is Melody Johnson a year and a half ago being given probation for attempted murder. Poisoning her husband's coffee daily for the sole purpose of intending to collect insurance. That's multiple levels of criminality. That's not just, premeditation. That's not just intent to. It's also fraud and a scheme to financially enrich herself. But again, this is the reason that I say that these judges are not people. They're not people. They're a virus that needs to be eradicated. But they got failed. No, stop it. Just because you stick it in to crazy doesn't mean it's not crazy.
But if a man did this to his girlfriend, he'd be going away for life. If it ever gets to the point where your girlfriend ends you, and she only gets 6 months to a year prison tops, then sleeping next to a woman at night in a bed will be one of the most dangerous things you can do. And the UK feminists are trying to free all women from prison, it seems. Up next, the study shows that children of liberal parents are more likely.
And if you question that intent, Steve Brule, he is, I think he's Canadian. He and I spoke a few times, online, not face-to-face or over the phone or anything, but we spoke a few times. He and his colleague, I don't know, what's her name, Jeanette Fiamongo, she's the one that puts out the majority of the information, but let me look it up. So his account is Studio Brule. B as in boy, R as in Romeo, U as in uniform, L as in Lima, E as in echo, and then there's an accent mark over the E. Let's see. Well, let's take a look. I want to get this woman's name correct because it's very easy to get caught up in, oh, women bad, because, but if that is what one does, if that's all one is consumed by, it's a generality, and generalities don't work. Profiling is one thing, generalities are another. Fiamingo, F is in Foxtrot, I is in India, A is in Alpha, M is in Mary, E is in Echo, N is in November, G is in Golf, O is in Oscar. I was hoping to get her first name, but on his account, Studio Brule, and he's on Rumble, another guy that I talked to, he and I, when I did the Men on Strike book, I mentioned it, and he went and listened to it. He was very amused by my mocking of female voices, but he mentioned that Steve Brule actually had a presence on Rumble also, because I know he's on YouTube, but, so he's on at least both platforms, and Steve Brule is under both his name, Steve, and Studio Brule on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But his colleague, Fiasco, is the one that puts up the majority of the information, but a lot of the information that's put up there deals with the Seneca Falls Convention, and that they had an opportunity to, because of the time frame, you had recently freed slaves, and you had the suffrage movement, and the suffrage movement was led by a group of women, obviously. Let's see. I want to get this Katie woman's name correct, too. Um, Seneca Falls. Let's see if her name pops up here. Elizabeth Cady Canton. Yeah, I'm glad I looked that up, because I always get her name messed up. So, Seneca Falls Convention was in the late 19th century, and it led to the 19th Amendment. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was a key organizer, and these leaders of this movement, of the suffrage movement, did not want to ally themselves with the recently freed slaves and help advance their cause, their mentality, their behavior. Their direct quotes, if you look them up, are very, very bigoted in that they were unwilling to let, we're not going to let a black man have rights before us. That mentality, those statements, those documents exist. That is how their thinking and their agenda is shaped. It is the femocracy, above all else. So anyway, one of the things why I brought up Studio Brule is they document it. They provide the citations and the examples that part of this agenda has been and continues to be the eradication of women in prison. Women can be violent offenders, and there are direct calls that only men are to be incarcerated. Women are not. Essentially, it's the Spartan society, but in this case, instead of the actual Spartans being, at the top of the pyramid and able to murder their slaves and so forth, and do whatever, and practice being warriors, the feminocracy crowd, the suffragette crowd, is women can do whatever they want. They can treat men and boys however they please without consequence, because they view men and boys as a servant class, and that has always been their agenda and their goal. And there's outright demands and calls for the eradication of women's prisons, and that's now being implemented in the British Isles. And to a less, in an indirect manner, that's what's being done in America with people such as Angela Yuramova, who made false allegations about Daniel Pearson, who is only sentenced to weekends only for 2 years. I mean, that's 104 days max. That's not a sentence, that's a vacation. And then Melody Johnson, 3 years of probation and mental health counseling. Again, that's not a sentence, that's a vacation. You know, so it's an indirect method of eradicating women prisons for violent women. And this isn't, this can't allow, society cannot function on this level. Ultimately what will happen is these women that are abusive and violent are going to do it to the wrong individual. And you see these videos being profiled on various, you know, what, call it what you want, you know, misogynist channels or red pill channels or, you know, MGTOW channels, whatever. But it's the woman who FA'd and FO'd. She thought she could hit him and ends up knocked out for a week. You know? You fight with the bull, you're going to get the horns.
You had mental issues. You don't say. With my best Nicolas Cage face. But we don't need a study to tell us that. We're already living it every single day.
Yeah, the headline, this is from 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago. Children of liberal parents more likely to have mental issues study. Anybody who's been raised with liberal parents, if they're honest, they know this is a fact, and that is, if you coddle your child's feelings without boundaries, meaning there's a reason you give children chores, there's a reason you introduce pets and the responsibility of the child to care for the pet. These things give purpose and definition to a child, that there are consequences for their actions, and that there are structures and systems in place in order to function in society. Well, you don't feel like doing your homework, that's okay. We'll just complain to the school board or the teacher or the principal and how it's their fault. Yeah, that doesn't do anything. Oh, you don't want to go outside and play. That's okay. Sit inside all day and do nothing. You know, no, you can't fatten the calf. You know, these children are adults in training. They need to understand what it is to function. My rule was, if you get up and you have a bowl of cereal, for example, that's fine. You can have your bowl of cereal, but when you're done, you will wash that bowl and that spoon, and you'll rinse it, and you will put it up to dry, and when it's dry, you will put it away. You have so many rules, you're so mean. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. That gets into a whole different thing, but bottom line is, you gotta have chores for them, you know, whether it's something simple as raking leaves, sweeping porches, sweeping the floor, doing dishes, doing laundry. You know, a woman I dated, oh, my brothers, they didn't learn how to do laundry until they were 18 because they were going away. Yeah, and I'm thinking, how do you become that incompetent that somebody wipes your butt at 18 years of age and you're just now learning? I learned how to cook for myself and do my own laundry at 10 or, you know, between 10 and 12 years of age. And, I mean, modern frickin' convenience. You push the dial in, you turn it, you pull the knob out, you put your load of laundry in, you add your soap, you close the lid, you come back half an hour later, you put it in the dryer. We're not talking about building a mission to Mars here. We're talking about doing laundry. It is the simplest of tasks. I mean, hell, you get your 5-gallon bucket, you simplicity of doing laundry. Right there. So to be 18-year-old men and having to be shown how to do it is gross negligence on the parents' part in that regard.
We already know that your liberal mother is more likely to turn you trans more than anybody else out there. Increasingly, this is what it's like being a parent in 2025, protecting your kids from the pedo-Satan rainbow.
And I've already talked about it before. Jeff Younger is at the forefront, and Brent Bowlby also. So you got Jeff Younger out of Texas dealing with Texas and California jurisdictions because his crazy ex ran off there to California with Texas with permission and violent force protections of of their government to run to California. And then you got Brent Bowlby, who's being targeted constantly by Minnesota. Both men are fighting desperately to protect their children, and if you have the means, whether it's legal knowledge or financial resources, I'm certain if you reach out to either or both, they would be receptive to any assistance and put you in touch with others who are not as known that are in similar circumstances. Again, cutting off their balls is an offering to Moloch. And if that's what it takes to get you off your butts and actually engage, your apathy is appeasing Moloch. It's not serving your God that you think you're giving worship to every Sunday or whatever you do. You're serving that Moloch thing, the child sacrificer thing, demon, monster.
Number 11, this Popeye's manager used a boomstick on a coworker over burnt biscuits. I initially thought this was a photo of the customer, but this is actually a manager. And the Starbucks employees think they have it hard because they have to wear uniforms now. At least their manager won't pump them full of lead if they don't dress correctly. Southerners also better stop saying that really burnt my biscuit, or they might be next. This guy has some serious dedication to product quality, it seems. Moving on, Brandon says that Western civilization depends on generations of hyper-competent Caucasian males to keep the complex infrastructure running. Now those men will be retiring, getting fired because of their background, or not getting into the STEM fields in the first place. I used to think that the smart thing to do was to move to a small town and watch the collapse from a distance. But soon AI will replace those men using robots to maintain everything. And hopefully I'll own tons of shares in such companies. Number 13.
I disagree that is going to be the saving grace. I think it'll be similar to Atlas Shrugged, that they will patchwork it to limp along, but it will eventually collapse. The reason I say that is we've already seen it demonstrated by the previous video about people becoming psychotic and committed for turning to the AI as their savior, their messiah, or whatever you want to call it. The technology may advance, but it's not competent at functioning. Well, we've already got robots that are building cars. It's not going to be long before they specialize these robotic abilities to be doing the repairs. I mean, come on. I already know, and I tell this to people, my hands are too big to get into these newer cars. But a machine, they built it. They can probably build it to get in there to remove specialized items. So it's only going to be a matter of time. But these are specialized robots to build cars and then maintain them. They're not adaptable to doing power stations. You might have one robot that builds the car. You'll have another robot that does maintenance on it. But neither of those robots can go to the nuclear power station and do a canister transfer. There's too much that is on the line in terms of, just at a minimum, environmental contamination if it falls apart. To being a full-blown blow-up, if handled improperly, as well issues of being compromised. Oh look, it's a they're transferring a cast to do a fuel transfer. They're doing a fuel transfer. This is the most opportune time to do it. And if it's only robots, it'll be a great, because yeah, it's the weakest spot. The security's already compromised. That's when you would be able to grab the fissile material, secure it, put it in a lead box, get away, and now you've got the makings for your dirty material. The bottom line, what I'm trying to emphasize here is we're about a 50 years minimum, I suspect, before we have multi-adaptable robots. The R2D2s that can fix anything and everything and have the computational resources to intuit and to create new ways of doing it. Things that actual people that are skilled and practiced are able to do in their sleep. Now, I was showing this to somebody recently, and Tim Pool references it quite often. There's unconscious incompetence, there is learned incompetence, there's unconscious competence, or conscious competence, and then finally unconscious competence. What those levels, those tiers represent is you don't know how to do it. Then you learn enough to know that you don't know everything, but you know how to do some of it with the reference manual. And then you've learned enough of it to do, to be functional with it. And then there's the ability to do it in your sleep, so to speak. That's what those graduated tiers represent. And most people, and as I was discussing with somebody yesterday, he was describing that a lot of the people he's dealt with are too stupid to know what it is that they are doing. They don't, they think they've done it, they've seen it once, they think they're an expert, I believe is the phrase he used. And that's when I pulled that up to show him, and he's like, oh my God, that's it. You know what I'm talking about. So, that's what it, anyway. So the meme is, there should be an app where you can rent a middle-aged man to go with you anytime you have to take your car to get service, so that way they don't make up stuff for you to pay for. The reply was, used to be called a quote-unquote husband back in olden days. I am not a mechanic, but the things that I have diagnosed, it's amazing to me. And I've made reference to stuff like this, either in conversation with others. I am not a mechanic. I am not a tradesman. The biggest thing for me was a man that was 10 years older than me. So he was already in his, he was old, over 50 maybe. I don't know. Yeah, late 40s, over 50. This is this is well over, oh shoot, how long ago was this? This is easily 15 years ago. I'm in Seattle, and I think I may have said this before. Somebody had I worked for a medical company. There was a crib. I, joked with the boss. I was like, hey, is there something you can, that you're meaning to tell all of us that you're just kind of hinting at? What do you mean? It's at the crib. You get somebody knocked up, or you expecting a kid? Didn't even know you were married. He laughed, and he's like, no. One of the blood draw centers needed it for something, but it needs to be fixed. So I talked to his assistant. I was like, hey, let's go get it fixed. Long story short, the guy never even held a hammer. I'm like, how do you go through school in Idaho and never pick up a hammer, never pick up a screwdriver? How do you not know how to do something? Idaho, of all places, all the frickin' big farms where they do, all the agriculture work, how How? How do you grow up in the Pacific Northwest and not ever pick up a hammer, a screwdriver? How do you not disassemble your own bicycle and rebuild it? How? How do you not do that? How are you not curious enough to do that to make it work? Let alone, how do you go through life never having built a tree fort in the Pacific Northwest with the abundance of trees of which to build your tree fort? How? How do you not do that? That has always astounded me. And then, even recent, the deer in the headlight look. The lights are on, nobody's home. Your car is behaving in this manner because of, and they check out. I don't know. I just need it to work. Or the other guy that I was saying is an expert in his craft, but when it comes to his legal stuff, the business operations, the taxes and all that, I don't know any of that. I just know how to do my job. I outsource this for everybody. How do people become adults on that level? How do you not know this stuff? How in the hell do you get through, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of life not knowing how to file taxes, not knowing how to do your own taxes, not knowing how to do simple home repairs, not knowing how to disassemble your freaking bicycle or do a simple diagnostic? I mean, they sell them at the auto store, the OMB computers. You just plug it into the port under the steering wheel, and it pops up either directly with the message or the code, and you type the code in and it tells you what's wrong. And it gives you instructions on how to clear the check engine light once you've solved it. I'm not a mechanic, but geez Louise, this is common sense, basic, simple, stupid stuff. And I'm not attempting to shame anybody, but how do these people, how do they function so incompetently and still manage to be upright and fed?
Speaking of competent meals, Colleen says she wishes there was a nap where you could actually rent a middle-aged man to go with you as a woman to the mechanic to make sure you're not getting screwed over. In the olden days, that was the job of their husband or their father if they were still younger. And here I thought that anything a man can do, a woman can do even better. Here's a novel idea. Maybe women can learn something about cars. Up next, when you ask a woman what they bring to the table these days, they say they are the table, and then wonder where all the good men went. I've seen better quality tables at IKEA. When women say that...
I don't know about anybody else, and this is going to show my age. Whenever it's the I am the table or where are all the good men, immediately it's, that song, oh shoot. I want to say something like, where have the cowboys gone? Paula Cole. Where have all the cowboys gone? 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, you get me ready in your 56 Chevy. Why don't we go sit down in the shade? But anyway, it's all about the courting at the beginning, and then it goes on. It's this long rant. Essentially, what it is you don't do what you did. The Neil Diamond. You don't buy me flowers. You don't say you love me from the 70s. The song that he did in the 70s. Essentially, it's a modern woman version of the same thing. I will do the laundry if you pay all the bills. The division of labor. Where's my John Wayne? Where's my Prairie Song? Where's my happy ending? Where have all the cowboys gone? And it keeps, as couples become more familiar, instead of being attentive to each other and interested in what they're doing or saying, the desire to go back to old patterns, old behaviors, return, well, I just want to sit in peace and read my book, or I want to go hang out with my friends, or I just want to eat my dinner. But you used to dote on me. You used to do this. You used to do that. you know, essentially that's what it comes down to. Whether it's a Neil Diamond song from the 70s, you know, you don't write me love songs, you don't bring me flowers, you know, how did that go? Come on. Oh, but these are all laments, and essentially what it is, you know, Robert Glover, that's the guy that wrote the No More Mr. Nice Guy that I mentioned before, and he said multiple times, whatever it is you do at the beginning of a relationship, be prepared to continue doing it throughout. So if you don't like opening the door for your romantic interest, don't start doing it at the beginning. Because whatever you do at the beginning, be prepared. So if you're doting on that individual, be prepared to be hanging on every word, no matter how dull and boring it is, you know, for the rest of that relationship. Otherwise, they're going to call you out on it and say you don't do what you used to do. I remember when you couldn't wait to love me, you used to hate to leave me. Now after loving me late at night, when it's good for you, and you feeling all right, well, you just roll over and you turn out the light, and you don't bring me flowers anymore. Yeah, I mean, these are all laments. That's all they are, lamentations, you know, pining for how it was at the beginning, because you used to do these grand overtures, now you don't anymore. That's what pops into my mind when these memes and these call-outs from, you know, I am the table, where are all the good men? Well, you know what? You didn't appreciate it. They went away. So those who do appreciate it have locked it down and are probably making certain that you don't find out about where they're at, so they don't risk you stealing them.
They are the table. What they really mean is they want you to bring things to them like some sort of slave. What women are quickly learning is that the good men are staying single, and some are even sleeping around, but they're refusing to commit. I think she has to at least put a sandwich on that table if she wants men to show up to it. Number 15 of these boomers greedy. This guy's wife paid off their stepdaughter's $415,000 mortgage in exchange for her house, and now it's only worth $310,000.
My wife and I paid off my stepdaughter's $415,000 mortgage in exchange for her house, but it's now worth $310,000. Should we sue? We're 71 and 67 and can't afford this kind of loss in retirement. The fault is on you for not doing your due diligence. All you need to do is call up your local title company and get a TRIO report. T-R, Tango, Romeo, India, Oscar, T-R-I-O. It's free. They will email it to you. It's a PDF format. It will tell you who purchased the home, what year, what the purchase price at that time, the lien holder, you know, who they got the loan through. It'll tell you the tax assessed value, the undeveloped land with improved structures. It'll break all of that down for you. It's a free report. Do the due diligence. Come on. You're freaking 70-something. You're not a damned idiot. How do you people not know this stuff?
And he's wondering if they should actually sue her. Sounds to me like the parents are just as stupid as the daughter. They should have checked the house value on something like Zillow before giving her the money. Or they should have just let it go back to the bank. I know I'm just going to trigger some boomers with this post.
The other one is a CMA, Charlie Mike Alpha. It's a comparative market analysis, and there's many bank tools that allow open source use of it. Essentially what it is, you type in your address and it pulls up what's called comps. It's a poor man's version of doing an appraisal. Because an appraiser is going to charge you, what was it? It used to be $500, but now I imagine it's probably more. But all they do is pull up publicly referenced material of what comparable properties have sold for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot home, 2 blocks away, sold for $250,000 within the last 6 months. Another one 4 blocks away, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, split level, sold for $310,000. That's how they do it. That's all they do. And then they go and they look at the one actually being appraised and they say, this one has a maintained yard or a non-maintained yard. It has a cul-de-sac or it's just on a through street or it's rural. How do you people not know this stuff? This is common sense stuff. I don't get it. The numbers of people that can't look under their hood and look at it and be like, oh my God, I have engine problems because I didn't put the oil cap back on. How do you not get this stuff? I've never used a hammer. I've never used a screwdriver. How do you live your lives to these ages? I mean, we're talking 50 and above, 40 and above. How do you live your lives and not know how to do a simple comparative market analysis for real estate purchase? How do you not know how to calculate simple interest, principal times rate equal, in time, the PRT formula? You just multiply one by the other equals the outcome, or you divide one by the other and you get, I mean, this is simple stuff. We all learned it in elementary school. How do you not know this stuff? I would understand it if it were advanced algebra. Doing quadratic formulas is a bit challenging for some people. Matrices, man, no matter how many times I sat down with the teacher, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. So I get algebraic concepts, to some degree, but I made a reference of making the simple mistake of confusing the possessive form of there, the THEIR, with the pronoun version, the they are, and then the actual there, the directive, it's over there, Tom, or in Russian, Tom, I get confusing grammar. I even to some degree understand misspelling, but how do you people function without knowing how to file your own damn taxes? It's easy. They call it the 1040 EZ for a reason, because you just put your name, your social security number, and box 1 has your employer ID number, box 2 has your gross wages, box 3 has your withholdings, or something to that effect, and it goes all the way down to what, box 15, box 16, depending on what it is that you've done for retirement contributions and taxes withheld. It's frickin', it's dumb simple. I don't get it. How do you not know this stuff? How do you run a business and not know this stuff? How do you not? I'm bewildered, ladies and gentlemen. I don't get it how people have managed to become adults bordering on retirement, not knowing this stuff, or even just, I'm a functional adult, I got a college degree, but I've never. What did you get a college degree in? I mean, at least basket weaving is a skill, as I referenced before. Basket weaving, you can have something to put items in. Survival school teaches that to you within the first day or two of how to make a basket. Then they find the weakest, I say weakest, but that's not the right term, but essentially the one that is the most bonded with the rabbit and make them kill it so that it gets skinned and cooked to survive off of. Because the survival school spends a week, and the week of survival school is, the first portion is developing the skills that are needed. The second portion of the training is evasion from hostile forces, and then the third portion is you've been captured and you're being interrogated. So I don't get it. I don't get it how you people function as adults and not know this stuff. I need water. Well, you get close to a water source, within, if you're 100 feet away from a water source, dig a hole. There's enough groundwater that's going to fill that hole. But that's dirty water. Well, get a bag of charcoal. Get a bag of charcoal and get an empty gallon of milk. Cut the bottom off, turn it upside down, gravel, charcoal, you know, and whatever else that goes into it, and take your dirty water, pour it through the top, and have it filter through. Well, it's still not clean. Do it several times then. I don't understand how people function on that level. That it makes no sense to me. I'm not a smart guy. I'm not the genius, and yet I look around and I'm surrounded by, you know, people that can't get out of chairs. They refuse to get out of chairs because they're afraid. That run their businesses into the ground. You know, get abortions on demand because they can't close their legs. You know, and I look around and I'm like, what the heck is y'all's malfunction? Who dropped you on your head? Who beat you? Who hurt you? I don't know. I'm kind of on a tangent. Happy 4th of July.
It seems to be a common occurrence lately. Moving on, here's the progression of females in their photos. They used to need men to take the pictures for them. And then they took selfies, and in another 5 years, they'll have AI render them into the part of the world that they want to be in, so they'll look like they can afford a 5-star lifestyle. It'll even give them tans and change their clothing for them. No one will believe photos or videos anymore. You'll have to live stream from various locations to prove that you actually went there. Even that might be suspects. Number 17 in a fight between 100 gorillas and one Gorlock the Destroyer, who would win? My money's on Gorlock. The stench alone would take out most of the gorillas. They'd be too busy vomiting to death to...
If you're not familiar with Gorlock the Destroyer, that's not the individual's name, but they are a cosplaying man, you know, a short, obese man dressing up, pretending to be a woman, and then calls out that men aren't manning up anymore, blah, blah, blah. It's just like the Democrats dropping $20 million and then getting a fat woman to be their ambassador to speak on men's issues. It's all absurdity. You know, go out and touch grass. I mean, the level of absurdity, the level of stupidity, the level of apathy that exists in the world is just phenomenal. You guys don't know how to do comparative market analysis or how to do a trio report to do simple property research, how to file a 1040 EZ, how, you know, entering into verbal contracts that end up sinking you because you're doing it when you're half toasted with alcohol and or weed or some other chemical altering substance. Look, I don't know how y'all managed to stay alive this long, but it's because they've got safety rails, you know, bumper cars.
Stop it. Those poor gorillas. But then again, maybe the gorillas could still win after Gorlock beat them all. Maybe Gorlock would dive into indigestion after trying to eat all of them. In that case, even if Gorlock wins, them still loses.
I've made reference to this in the past. My friend that died 2 years ago lamented the one property that he was interested in, that a couple bought it from underneath him, all that. And that's not the way that the world works. You put an offer in, you go, you get your pre-approval from the bank, you either buy the property outright, and then you can do what's called an LTV, loan to value. Let's say you go and you've got, for easy math, let's say you have $100,000. Let's say you have $10,000 in your pocket and you want to buy some land. You buy a piece of land that's $5,000, you buy the permit, and you put your temporary structure on there. Now it's worth $15,000, $20,000, right? You take your assessment to the bank and you say, I own this property outright that I paid $5,000 for. I've done these improvements, and the bank says, great, we can do an LTV, loan to value loan. It's usually an 80% loan to value, which means that of the $20,000 value of the land, they're willing to lend you 80%. Well, 80% is what, 16,000? So if my math is off, forgive me. So you get a loan for 16,000. Then you go back to the permit office, you secure a loan for doing simple, like a septic tank, a well, water well, and you get those installed. And you keep paying on the, you pay the loan. I mean, how much is payment on a freaking $16,000 loan? Maybe what, 400 bucks, if that? Because the interest rate's going to be different on an LTV. But you pay it off, in a short amount of time. But you now have a temporary structure with a water well and a septic tank. After that loan's paid off, or if you can swing 2 payments, you go back and you get an additional loan to value, LTV loan, with the improvements of the water well and septic. And now they're willing to lend you $50,000. I kind of get it how people don't know this stuff on that level. I kind of get it. As in, a part of me gets it that you guys don't know this stuff because you've been black-pilled into thinking, I'll never own a home. But in the case of my friend, he was attached to a singular property. And I learned a long time ago, you never fall in love with a property. Never. You do the math, And I took a class on landlord-tenant law, 25 years ago, 25 years ago, and the instructor, oh man, I wish I could remember his name. He was phenomenal. He said, would you ever buy a property sight unseen? And most people's reaction is, no, I would never buy a property sight unseen. And his answer is, you're wrong. The government compliance to begin with is already a significant factor in your favor, all right? And what that means is you have 2 sets of assessments going on. You have your property tax assessment. You have an individual paid for by the government to go out and assess a property so that they know how to assess the property taxes. That's going to list everything that's been done to it. So there's that aspect. There's the TRIO report that I've already mentioned. There's the comps, the CMA, the comparative market analysis. That's open source intelligence research. Simple stuff to get. Those 2 are the simplest and most free things to get. The tax filing is also open source. All you need to do is have the tax parcel number, and they'll send you the same report. It'll show you the map. Both the TRIO report and the tax records will show you everything that's been done to the property, what developments have been made to it. And then finally, there's the appraiser. You pay the $500 or whatever it is to get an appraisal done on the property, and you're going to know what it is you're buying. There's no reason to see it. There is a mathematical formula that you can do as a business owner. Let's say you own a bistro, a coffee shop, and you want to know the example that he used was the place wanted to have a stage, but they wanted to know which place to locate the stage. So he did a math calculation as to which tables were the biggest money makers and which were the least money makers. Once they did the calculation to know which tables, they charted it. They looked at their sales because every table is numbered or lettered, so they're identified. Table A, let's say table A is by the door, all the way to table Z is by the kitchen. So let's say the door is on the northwest corner, on the southwest corner, and the kitchen entrance and exit is on the northeast corner. those two corners were the least profitable tables. Well, you can't put a stage split at the front door and at the entrance access to the kitchen, right? That's a given. So then you start doing your mathematical breakdown as to which is the table. Let's say it's, K through O, which would be roughly the middle of your A to Z, right? K through O would be the center of your bistro. Those are the most profitable. And then you do direct dead center north to direct dead center south calculations as to which tables are the most profitable. If the center is the most profitable, how much of a decline as you go more north, how much of a decline as you go more south. And right now, if you're listening to this, your eyes might be rolling to the back of your head or bleeding because it doesn't make any sense to you. And that is part of the problem. You're not able to. This is simple calculation of how you establish value on a property, on a business. You can determine which part of your real estate is the moneymaker. There's a reason houses in the Northeast sell more rapidly than houses on the West. It's because of sunlight. You do not want to be driving to your job with the sun glaring in your eyes. If you live in the West, the sun rises in the East. Therefore, if your metro area is in the East, you're going to be driving into the sun, getting to work, and you're going to be driving in the sun as you're heading home at the end of your standard 9 a.m., 6 p.m. commute. That's what all this comes down to. Real estate professionals would call it, would be more competent and more skilled in explaining this, and may be able to tell me what it is I'm not getting correct in this assessment. But I was attempting to tell my friend before he died, your biggest mistake was being married to that property. There's multiple properties out there. You go and you find it. At the very minimum, you find that raw land and you do the LTV, loan to value, and you start developing it. It may be painstaking, it may be long, but that's how you do it. And you may not always find a permitting office that's willing to be that's willing to work with you. There might be reasons that there's restrictions, but you have to do your due diligence, your research to ask people if they've had issues with permitting in the past. And don't just go knock on the neighbor's door and ask them, because they're most likely not going to know either. You want to talk to those that are in the industry that do the permitting. And even then, when they're in the industry, you got to be selective. The more you do it, the more you're going to become experienced. But here's what, you can buy a property sight unseen based off of those reports, because all of these agents, whether it's government or private, have done the work for you. So you're getting a real thing on that regard. Then, if you have to develop it, you have to develop it. If you can buy it existing, buy it existing. But never just be, oh my gosh, I fell in love with it when I saw it. Never buy it on an emotional thing. Build it to accommodate you. Transform it to be you. Make it yours from the beginning, when you've acquired the property. Never buy it because you feel that it's calling to you. It's an inanimate object. It's one thing to go to the pound and make that emotional connection with the dog, that you're rescuing. That's different. A house isn't being rescued. It's just a thing. It's not alive. Your presence with the dog is what gives it familiarity.
Next is 5'0" trans man is upset because random guys keep laughing at how short he is, and he feels inferior because even short men are considered to be 5'6". So now he's considering height-altering surgery. But the tallest he can be is 5'6", which would still be short. Hey dude, how's that male privilege treating you? Don't you see and feel the almighty power of the patriarchy yet? And if you're going to complain about height, then maybe you just need to go back to being a girl. Number 19 looks like the left-hand meme again. This is supposed to be an insult turning down brown women, corn, becoming trans, men and working girls, among other things. As if those things are viable alternatives. It's hard to figure out who this is trying to insult. As far as I'm concerned, opening that door is worse than being lonely. Men want a long-term relationship with a woman they can have sex with on a regular basis. None of those things provide that except maybe the brown girl. Moving on, people often say they want to go back in time and kill a certain Austrian painter while he's still a small child. But Ryan says he's never heard anyone say they would show him love and care and make him a better person.
So I'm going to edit it, but I'm going to try to read through it a little more direct. This was back in February of 2018. Everyone always asking if you would end Baby H mustache, but no one asking if you'd give Baby H mustache love and care and make him a better person.
What a great idea. Someone should go back in time and give him the right training and guidance.
So along the same lines of, the rich need to pay more taxes. Instead of punishing the wealthy, how about create an environment where more people can keep their money that they earn? Creating contempt, an environment that fosters contempt, jealousy, doesn't make, it creates resentment. It doesn't better anybody. It just creates division.
Yes, and maybe he would win the second time. In an alternate universe, he did, and I'm speaking German instead of English. I guess
that alternate universe isn't so alternate. Operation Paperclip, if you're not familiar, was all sides of the Soviets and the Americans, the Allies, essentially rushing to secure the various Germans that were involved with various projects and running them back to France, England, America on one side and Soviet Union on the other side, because he who has the most toys wins. That is essentially what it came down to. We just got out of a war, so we're going to take this vanquished opponent, and we're going to take the brains that made it so formidable, and he who secures those who made the most damage, we're going to put them to work for us. That's what it came down to. Operation Paperclip was designed to keep them out of it, but they subverted it because, as Eisenhower said in his farewell address, the military-industrial complex.
necessity is the mother of all invention. Number 21, every man wants one thing, and it's a fully automated machine gun in their car. This kind of reminds me of the first Death Race film.
Well, it looks like Batman's tumbler from Batman Begins with 250 calibers mounted on top. I mean, come on. You know you want one.
As for me, what I really want is the state getting off my back and to stop charging me all those taxes.
And I already said that right before this.
So far, I've been able to outrun the inflation tax through Bitcoin and tech stocks, and I'm rapidly outrunning capital gains tax with tax-free investment accounts. The others are harder to outrun, but I'll do it in the end. Up next, Amanda jumped into a freezing river in Alaska to save her dog. She died, and 4 months later, they found her remains still clutching the dog she tried to save. The fur baby's life was more important than her own. But it all makes sense because he was her bedmate after all. I can understand doing anything to save your pet, and it's part of your family. If she'd just gone upstream, he might have climbed down on his own, and they both would have survived. Number 23 is Bruce Springsteen, still the boss. No, because he looks like a discount Ellen DeGeneres, or geriatric lesbian truck driver, or possibly like Rachel Maddow chopping wood at her cabin. But I don't care what anybody else says. It looks like Bruce has developed a fine set of knockers. But Bruce Springsteen was never the boss. He was more like the comrade. Here's Bruce paying tribute to Joe Biden by falling on stage. Moving on, this has to be the most racist thing I've ever seen. In the 1950s, a Belgian father brought an African child for his daughter's entertainment. that he put that kid in a birdcage because he was afraid he would hurt them or get them pregnant or something. But this never happened because it's just a joke. The cage doesn't have a bottom. He can just stand up and leave it any time he wants, if the girls weren't holding it down. Number 25 in the last one looks like Diddy, aged 20 years, and the span is 6 months in jail. He's probably low on baby oil as well as hair dye. He's almost 60 after all, but he's really more likely low on adrenochrome. Plus, he's no longer getting his weekly celebrity facials. Meanwhile, J-Lo won't face any accountability even though she was his girlfriend and participated in his freak-offs. So that's it for another Memes of the Week. Please give this video a like to push it up in the algorithm and so new viewers can find it. If you enjoyed...
I just realized it's been going for almost 2.5 hours, so I'm going to close this off so that it doesn't take all afternoon to upload. Thanks for checking out the chickens, listening to me opine, and if this is uploaded today, happy Independence Day. If it's uploaded afterward, I hope you had a great Independence Day.